The last time an Amish man in Lancaster County sat in a dentist's chair, he was there to watch, not as a patient, as a curious observer. He had come with a neighbor who needed a filling, and when the dentist asked him to open his mouth, he shook his head. Nothing to fix. He was 67 years old, a retired nurse who spent 12 years running a mobile health clinic through Holmes County, Ohio, told me that story. She had seen it enough times that it stopped surprising her. Men and women in their 60s and 70s. People who had never once used commercial toothpaste, never seen a fluoride treatment, never paid for a cleaning, sitting across from her with teeth her dental colleagues could not explain. Not bright white television teeth, but solid, intact, functional teeth, working for 6 decades on hard bread, raw vegetables, smoked meats, and very little sugar. And the thing they use every single morning cost about $4 at any hardware store in America. Before this video is over, I am going to show you exactly what that compound is, how it works at the chemical level, what the research actually says about it, and why the $50 billion dental products industry would prefer you never connect these dots. If you already use the products sitting in your bathroom right now, stay with me. What I'm about to share applies to every tooth in your mouth starting tonight. If you have watched this channel long enough to know that simple solutions get buried when they threaten someone's revenue, drop a comment right now. Tell me where you are watching from. I read every single one. Subscribe because the next video connects to something happening inside your gut that determines whether any of this works at all. What is actually happening inside your mouth. Let me start with the science, because once you understand this, everything else will click into place. Your tooth enamel is the hardest substance your body produces. It is composed almost entirely of a crystalline mineral called hydroxyapatite. Approximately 96% by weight, calcium and phosphate ions locked into a structure so dense that it can withstand the grinding force of a molar for decades. It is a remarkable piece of biological engineering, but it has one enemy, acid. When the bacteria in your mouth feed on sugar and refined carbohydrates, they produce lactic acid as a byproduct. That acid lowers the pH inside your mouth below a threshold of about 5.5. When that happens, the enamel begins to dissolve. Calcium and phosphate ions are pulled out of the crystalline structure in a process called demineralization. Your teeth are literally dissolving in slow motion every time you eat a processed meal, drink a soda, or let plaque sit on your teeth for too long. Here is what almost nobody tells you at the dentist. This process is reversible. Your saliva contains calcium and phosphate ions. When the acid is neutralized and your mouth pH rises back above that 5.5 threshold, those ions can be deposited back into the enamel surface. The crystal structure rebuilds. Mineral loss is replaced. Your body is already equipped to repair your teeth. It does it every single day. The problem is the balance. When acid attacks come faster than your body can remineralize, the net result is decay. When you support remineralization and suppress the acid environment, the equation tips the other way. Early decay stops. Sensitivity decreases. The enamel gets harder. The Amish figured out how to tip that equation without a single visit to a dental products aisle. And they have been doing it since before the United States existed as a country. The $4 powder. The compound is baking soda. Sodium bicarbonate, a white crystalline powder that has been sitting in kitchens and pantries for over 170 years in America. Arm & Hammer sold it as a baking ingredient starting in 1867. It costs between $2 and $5 for a box that will last months. The Amish have been mixing a pinch of it with salt and using it as a tooth powder since before any of us were born. No glycerin, no artificial flavors, no synthetic surfactants, no titanium dioxide for whitening, no triclosan, just the powder, a damp toothbrush, and 2 minutes. Here's why it works at the chemical level, and here is why this is not the same thing as saying it is just a gentle abrasive. Sodium bicarbonate is alkaline. When you brush with it, it raises the pH inside your mouth. Specifically, it neutralizes the lactic acid produced by oral bacteria. When the acid is neutralized, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, the acid attack on your enamel stops. Second, the conditions for remineralization are restored. Your saliva can begin redepositing calcium and phosphate ions into the weakened enamel surface. The Journal of the American Dental Association published a supplement specifically on baking soda dentifrices. The finding that the researchers kept returning to was this: neutralization of plaque acids by baking soda is anti-cariogenic by facilitating remineralization of incipient carious lesions. In plain language, baking soda creates the conditions for your teeth to rebuild themselves by eliminating the acid environment that was destroying them. A peer-reviewed study published in PubMed tested baking soda combined with fluoride against a placebo and found that enamel demineralization was lower and remineralization was greater in the baking soda group, not marginally lower, measurably, statistically lower. And to be precise about what baking soda does and does not do, because this matters, baking soda is not itself a remineralizing agent. It does not contain calcium or phosphate. It does not directly deposit minerals into enamel. What it does is remove the obstacle. It neutralizes the acid. It clears the path. Your own saliva and the minerals in your diet do the rebuilding. Baking soda creates the environment for your body to do what it was already designed to do. That is a fundamentally different model than how the dental products industry sells you oral health. They sell you interventions, external agents that act on your teeth. Baking soda restores the conditions for your teeth to act on themselves. There is a reason this distinction matters, and it connects directly to a man named Weston Price, the dentist who traveled the world and found the answer nobody wanted. In 1931, a Cleveland dentist named Weston Andrew Price left his practice and spent the next decade traveling to 14 countries across 5 continents, documenting the oral health of populations who had not yet adopted Western processed foods. Swiss mountain villages, Gaelic fishing communities, indigenous nation of North America, African tribes, Polynesian islanders, the Inuit of northern Canada. In every location, he found the same thing. Populations on traditional, unprocessed diets, whole foods, fermented foods, raw dairy, organ meats, bone broths, showed almost no tooth decay. In some communities, dental caries rates were under 1%. Their teeth were straight, no orthodontics, no fluoride, no toothpaste at all in many cases. Then he photographed what happened when those same communities were introduced to Western trade foods, white flour, refined sugar, canned goods. The deterioration began in the first generation. Jaw narrowing and dental crowding appeared in children born to parents who had adopted the Western diet. He published his findings in 1939 in a book titled Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. His conclusion? Tooth decay was not primarily a hygiene problem. It was a nutritional problem. Deficiencies in fat-soluble vitamins, calcium, and phosphate created by eating refined foods stripped of their mineral content. The American Dental Association ignored the book. The solution Price proposed, return to nutrient-dense traditional foods, did not sell toothpaste. It did not fill dental appointment books. Price died in 1948. His research sat dormant for 40 years. The dental industry sold fluoride, the food industry kept selling sugar, and per capita rates of dental decay in America climbed steadily. What the Amish were doing while America was getting cavities. The Amish community of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania has been farming the same land since the early 1700s. Their dietary patterns have changed slowly, reluctantly, and only at the margins. They eat whole foods. They eat fermented foods, sauerkraut, cultured dairy, fermented grains. They consume raw milk directly from their own animals. They eat very little refined sugar and almost no processed food. They bake their own bread from whole grain flour. Their children grow up eating the way Weston Price's isolated indigenous communities were eating, the ones with the 1% dental decay rates. The 1985 study published by researchers in the Journal of Public Health Dentistry examined the oral health of an Amish population in southwest Michigan. The findings were striking. Dental caries scores for Amish children aged 5 to 17 were almost half the rate found in the general American population. Periodontal health scores were 3.6 times better than the national average. The researchers noted that lower levels of disease in the Amish could be related to their way of life and dietary patterns. Not their toothpaste, not their dentist visits, their way of life and dietary patterns. And then there is the powder. Every Amish household I have spoken to anyone about, from Lancaster County in Pennsylvania to Holmes County in Ohio to the communities spreading across Indiana and Kentucky, has a variation of the same basic oral hygiene practice. Baking soda, often mixed with a small amount of sea salt. Some communities use a little dried sage or dried peppermint leaf for flavor. Some add a drop of clove oil, which has its own documented antimicrobial properties. The base compound is always the same. The white powder that costs $4 and sits in the kitchen already. One woman I was told about in Sugar Creek, Ohio, Miriam, in her 70s, the grandmother of a large family, had raised 7 children on baking soda and salt. She had, as of the conversation I was informed about, never had a cavity filled in her adult life. Her grandchildren, the ones raised in the community using the same powder and eating the same foods, showed the same pattern. The ones who had left for the city and adopted different habits showed a different pattern. She did not know about hydroxyapatite. She did not know about demineralization, kinetics, or pH thresholds. She knew that the powder her grandmother had used kept teeth whole, and she used it. That is how traditional knowledge survives. While your toothpaste is not solving the problem it sells you, the global oral care market generates approximately $50 billion per year. The products that dominate it are sold on the premise that your mouth requires a chemical intervention several times per day or the situation will deteriorate. Here's what that market does not tell you. Fluoride toothpaste works by forming a compound called fluorapatite on the enamel surface, slightly more acid resistant than natural hydroxyapatite. That is the mechanism. But fluoride does not address why the acid environment exists in the first place. It coats the enamel while leaving the bacterial ecosystem and the dietary conditions that create the acid completely untouched. The sodium lauryl sulfate in most commercial toothpastes, the foaming ingredient, has been associated in peer-reviewed research with increased rates of aphthous ulcers, the painful mouth sores that many people get regularly without ever understanding why. The foam makes you feel like something is being cleaned. The actual cleaning is mechanical from the brush, not the chemistry. The people who sell you toothpaste are not selling you remineralization. They are selling you a product that manages symptoms while leaving the underlying conditions in place so that you need the product forever. It is a monthly bill that renews itself automatically in your bathroom cabinet. The Amish do not pay that bill. They never have. The protocol, what you actually do. Here's the practical application, because this channel is about what works on a regular property with regular materials, not about what impresses a researcher in a laboratory. The first part is the powder. Buy a box of pure baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, from any grocery or hardware store. It costs between $2 and $5. Add a small amount of non-iodized sea salt, roughly a 3-to-1 ratio of baking soda to salt. The salt adds gentle abrasion, contributes trace minerals, and has its own antibacterial properties. Some people add a single drop of clove essential oil. Clove contains eugenol, which has been used in dentistry for over a century as a natural antibacterial and analgesic. It is what your dentist uses in certain fillings and dry socket treatments. You can add it or leave it out. Wet your toothbrush. Dip it lightly into the powder. Brush for 2 minutes. The same 2 minutes your dentist tells you to brush with commercial paste. Rinse thoroughly with water. That is the morning and evening routine. 2 minutes, no expensive product, no subscription, no trip to a specialty store. The second part is what you eat. This is the part the dental products industry cannot bottle and sell. Weston Price was right. Your enamel is rebuilt by the minerals you put into your body. Calcium, phosphate, magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K2. These come from whole dairy, bone broth, oily fish, organ meats, eggs, and fermented foods that support nutrient absorption in the gut. Reduce the refined sugar. Every gram of it feeds the lactic acid producing bacteria in your mouth. The Amish are not ascetic about food, but their daily diet carries none of the background sugar load most Americans consume through processed breads, flavored drinks, and packaged snacks. That background load is a constant low-grade acid drip on teeth trying to rebuild. The third part is timing. The 30-day window is not marketing. Remineralization research consistently shows measurable changes in early enamel lesions within 4 to 8 weeks when mouth pH is shifted from acidic to neutral. The mechanism is cumulative. Every day your mouth pH stays above 5.5. Your saliva is depositing minerals back into the enamel surface. Give it 30 days. Use the powder twice daily. Cut the sugar. Eat the mineral-dense foods. Sensitivity decreases as enamel rebuilds. The surface feels smoother. Some people notice less gum bleeding as bacterial load drops in the sulcus, the pocket between tooth and gum, where periodontal disease starts. None of this requires a prescription. The Amish have been proving it for generations. The science has been sitting in journals the whole time, the industry and the gap. The dental products industry did not run a campaign to criminalize baking soda. What happened was quieter and more effective. They built a marketing architecture around the idea that oral health required their products specifically. They funded dentistry schools, shaped the curriculum, and created the professional consensus that fluoride was the gold standard and natural alternatives were primitive. A dental professional trained in the 1970s, 80s, or 90s was trained inside a framework built in part with industry money. That does not make every dentist dishonest. It makes the training incomplete. The toothpaste aisle is not arranged to show you the cheapest and most effective option first. The $4 box of baking soda with 2 centuries of documented use sits in the baking aisle next to the vanilla extract.